you want to talk about just this is also to get some attention for it, right? Would you just want to give people here just some background?
Well, you guys had a utilities workshop a couple of weeks ago. I attended it. There were some things that I liked, some things that I didn't like. And so I wrote up what I liked and didn't like, sent it to the city council, sent it to the utilities, and you contacted me.
Okay.
I was a little upset about certain aspects of, well, first off, I didn't know there was a strategic plan being built. As usual, somebody pops up and says, oh, there's a workshop tonight. And I didn't mention that a little more advance notice would have been good, but the point is there was only so much room for people. The workshop, I thought, was professionally handled, unlike some of the group meetings that I have attended in the past, particularly on transportation issues, and I wanted to make note of that. What bothered me a little bit was, well, one, nobody told us what was in the strategic plan other than some block diagrams, which look good in the sense of a process, but there was very little content alluded to, other than some keywords which bothered me a little bit, like aspirational, worldwide leadership, things that I felt were really out of the charter, such that it is for a municipal utility as small as the one that Palo Alto is. And given that Palo Alto has really big problems, like we saw with the pension problem and the unfunded healthcare liability, which I, according to Eric Filch, is as much as $1 trillion, $1 billion, which I've written about in the past myself. It seemed like to me that we ought to be focusing on delivering reliable power and not being worried about being worldwide leaders in this, that, or the other. I don't know how much of that input from the public was going to infuse itself into the strategic plan, but nonetheless, there were people there. They weren't quite at the same religious zealot of an old-time revival that I went to in the South when I was a kid, but there were elements of that. And I just wanted to use my typical, let's get real here, dose of cold water, is such that one email might to the city council provide to try to at least bring a little reality to the situation from the point of view of a long-time resident.
Okay. So I guess if you to kind of look at your overall satisfaction for utilities, is it?
Well, the utility does 3 or 4 things, and as long as it's reliable and cost-effective, that's good. My sense is that the management, on the other hand, is not as good as it should be for a municipal, transparent utility. And I've written about that. And I don't know how many. You're fairly new. I've been writing about utilities since 1989 when I first started researching it, and came to see that it was paperback, it was paper log, and that most of the managers didn't know what a computer was. That was 1989.
So what's your assessment of them now?
Well, unfortunately, the last year I have been in the hospital, and I have not had the energy to take too much attention. In the technology section, which I'm a technologist, I was disappointed in a little bit because of the fact that everybody there was just focusing on electric cars. And to me, that's an event that's going to happen, and it's a load capacity issue and a cost capacity issue, but there's no religious event in it other than people are going to start buying them and start using them.
Sure.
And they're going to use electricity. It's not like we have to install electricity for these cars to live.
Sure.
Myself, I'm more interested in cost reduction, cost containment, and I didn't get the sense that anybody there remotely concerned about it. Well, actually, yes, several people were concerned about what is it going to cost. And in my comments I wrote up, I suggested that there needed to be load models, a software that was able to predict load modeling, and from that cost growth that would come out of it. I don't get a sense that anybody at the utility currently wants to do that or knows how to do that. My sense is that 2 things: they need an internal they need some sort of internal IT person or persons so that they can get on with that. They also need an auditor. I mean, I've never been particularly happy with the Office of the Audit here in Palo Alto because I think it's too small. And I think the auditors have always run into the labor unions and realized they couldn't get anything done if they poked the bear too much. And so they did what they could do, and they've always chipped around the outside, but they've never done a real performance audit of the utility.
Interesting. So, what would you suggest that we? Oh, okay. So do you suggest we actually have a strong audit function, like a bigger audit office? What do you think? What do you think they may find if they did an audit?
Well, first off, you're always going to find people not performing up to the level of, one might say, expectations. In other words, unions always find ways to reduce the workload, increase the cost. And so you'd like the auditor to start finding out how are people doing work. So how many people are assigned to a job? If you look at how the unions work, routinely they say, well, this will take 4 people, and then they always try to find one extra person for some reason or another. Historically, and I've worked in manufacturing on the East Coast before I came up here, unions usually increase the load or the headcount by 30% over time. And so the question is, how much overhead do we currently have? One of the men, I went to there were 4 sections in this workshop. And the first was employment. I went there, and the gentleman running it said that about 25% of the headcount for the city was in the utility. So the question is, how many do you really need in the utility? The other issue is, for instance, well, I've actually seen utility people sitting under a tree in front of my house for an hour at a time. Now, maybe there's nothing else for them to do, and they can't go home until such a time. So the question is, would it be better to let them go home or turn in early and just say, we recognize there's nothing else you can do? So, and other people have noticed utility people, goofing off, but not working.
Well, a few years ago, there was the utility crews that was doing work in Menlo Park, right?
Yeah, I mentioned that too. And the other issues are, maintenance of the equipment, how well is it maintained? The auditor did do a check on the gasoline vaults a couple of years ago. That needs to be done periodically. A lot of that could be done with computers. And so, from my point of view, an auditor would have a good sense of how to install computers to do things like integrity checks, as well as determining the actual workloads and eventually figuring out how many people you need. The other issues then become the installed equipment. For instance, the city in 1976, they were going to put everything underground. And that undergrounding project has gone underground as far as I can tell. I don't know that the auditor would necessarily
5 minutes.
Improve that process, but at least we figure out what's going on. And as I pointed out in my paper, the auditor should report to the council.
The auditor does report to the council.
This report, this auditor, that would be over with working utilities. So it would not be I suppose you could house that person in the auditor's office, but whatever, it would be reporting to the council.
So I talked to one. I have office hours every spell, and this is the first time someone's come in and talking about this stuff. Because I'm actually really into it myself. I really think that there's huge efficiencies to be gained by measurement and audit and stuff. But to the average citizen, it's a slip of a topic.
Well, they are, and there's actually, you're all aware that 50% of the town are vendors.
Yeah.
So why would they care?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the just this topic, because I'm probably the 1% of the council that's really into this. Most of my colleagues are not really into this.
No, I understand, and that's one of the reasons it's been really frustrating over the years is that nobody wants to touch it, okay? Because one, they don't understand it, two, they're going to be gone. By the time they get on the council, they have a 2 to 4 year. They might be there 6 years, they might be there 2 years, who knows. But they've got this thing that sort of works over here in the corner. It's bringing in $16 to $18 million a year that they get to spend, and as long as they don't touch it, then they don't have to rustle any feathers.
Okay. Wow. So, so do you attend or watch the finance committee meetings?
No, I have a low tolerance for news.
Oh no, don't have to attend. You watch it.
No, I don't. In large part because, frankly, a lot of talk, little action.
I know. I feel the same way. We actually have. So what's your different feeling about the pension?
Well, I've been writing about that since I first began to realize it. Do you know who Emily Harrison was? Yeah. When she was here, I started getting into the budgets and started looking at what could we do to understand things. I sensed there was data missing, and I tried to deal with her that she said she wasn't going to give me information.
And there's massive data missing.
I'm sorry?
There's massive amounts of data missing.
It wasn't until ESB 35 to 45 came along and they forced the cities to start elevating that as a debt liability rate into the budgets that all of a sudden the real numbers began to become public. I did a spreadsheet on which I will send again tonight. Several times I've sent it in. It's the payouts for people making $100,000, $150,000, $250,000 a year when they exit. And it's just astounding that, these people end up making millions in retirement. And my there's one thing that we promise that money, there's not a lot of way we can make it unless we can find somewhere to make it. But the other problem is that nobody wants to talk about it. It's, when you talk about they're underpaid, well, wait a minute, you're going to get this only in addition to this.
Well, I'm told that if someone makes $100,000, they're actually getting $200,000 tax and pensions and all the benefits.
Oh yeah, it's very close to it. I don't know if it's 200, but it's
about less.
Yeah,
that's one for you. Tax and the pension.
Well, right now Palo Alto is paying. I don't remember the last number. Last time I was like 56% of the salary, of the base salary, was benefits, and it turns out that you end up having some of that benefit is actual pension payment. But then once you retire, you've got this huge thing. And right now, no one is adding them together. So you end up with this, what you might say, 2x while they're serving, but they're going to get, if they live 30 years, they end up making with a 2% COLA more than 2x.
Okay.
So it's really much closer to 3x.
So on Tuesday evening, 7 p.m., they're going to have a meeting. So one of the big things that they're trying to push first is for us to recognize our unfunded pension liability. Today we don't. So nowhere can you find the documents. If you actually look at
they've done it a couple of times with outside stuff. And so I can't, it's been like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Well, there's some stuff that's been negative FASB, right? So they can do some of that. But in terms of the, if you use like a more realistic discount rate, say 6%, then you see that there's about $1 billion that's not anywhere, it's not reported anywhere, like in terms of liability. And so that's what we're trying to get recognized.
No, I agree. And I've been writing about that for years, but just like the utility, the council doesn't like to take on difficult problems.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the pension thing, something I've been pushing for, both of us been pushing for. I know you don't like news, but certainly write in or comment on the 7 o'clock. I'm trying to talk to parents in the community, but I'm really, there's very few people who have like interest in this topic.
Good for you. It's like utilities, it's really important, but a lot of people are like, utilities, man, that's so boring. But...
Well, not just like the pensions, right? Most people aren't cognizant of that. And so, and just like talking, so how, like, this tends to be a very dry topic for the average citizen. Why are you kind of on this?
I'm a software developer. I spent the years developing software, one of the things I developed was spreadsheets in the early 80s. And so I became cognizant of the power of spreadsheets. And at the time, I hated it because there was no data. But in the 90s, all of a sudden, with the internet, data appeared, and I started doing all sorts of analysis. And little by little, I started looking at the city. And, my father was a Yankee, so they were very tight-fisted, and so I brought with me a sense that you should live within the union. And I started looking at the city and just, well, it just doesn't make sense. And so I started asking questions, and I got running around until Gatsby eventually pushed that.
Well, I've also pushed for open data, so that I'm trying to, well, it's actually in the comp plan, although it hasn't been fully approved yet. We'll improve the comp plan pretty soon. But as part of the government sections, to have all the data open to everyone, right? Because I really think that involves transparency. I think that's actually very important. And I'm glad there's people like you who actually have interest in this topic.
But it also has to be in a usable format. I mean, the city likes to release in PDF.
I know, that's the other thing. I wanted to release it in like with APIs or some CSV file where it's actually manipulable. So that's the other, I agree with you on that. So that's something that I've actually been pushing on. So I'm actually really pleased to hear someone like you is actually working on this. And if you could actually, I know you may not want to attend, but if you can at least comment on maybe, because we're going to have this topic on Tuesday evening, comment on that before, that'd be awesome.
That in the finance sector. I mean, I can come to the meeting. It's not that I don't.
Yeah,
I mean, I
7
come to
p.m.
some of them. I just don't go every week.
This is different. This is a topic just on this. Basically, what we're trying to do, we're trying to get the city to recognize the pension liabilities, which so far we have.
Yeah.
So we,
Well, when you say get the city, I mean, it seems to me that you're really talking about the council, or is there an administrative?
Right, can we wrap this up soon?
Okay, yeah, we're
Ready
on
to
time.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah. So in terms of getting this to recognize, I'm saying, so right now the way to think about it is in our budget, we have to make this minimum payment or to CalPERS, right, as part of the pension. But we have this actually much bigger pension liability that we don't report
No,
anymore.
I understand, but my question to you is, when you say the city is the city council and the administrative services.
I'm saying the city budget. We should have this as a
Well, I know, but it seems like to me somebody makes the decision to put it in or take it out.
Yeah.
So who's that person?
It's all up for us.
Okay, so why don't you lean on him?
Well, we are. This is what this meeting is about.
Can't you write a memo, colleague's memo or to the city manager and have him?
Well, that's what this finance community is about. It's actually like to make this happen. And so,
I mean, I've dealt with Perez off and on over the years. He is a true and blue city employee, but he's also a rational person. I mean, he's much better than his predecessor.
Yeah,
in
that's what
terms
it
of
is well.
dealing with the public and doing things that you ask him to do. And submit. I mean, I've submitted dozens of public information requests. He often has gotten, and he's always responded reasonably quickly and accurately.
Well, we're running out of time.
Yeah, unfortunately,
I'm hoping you could join us on Tuesday.
Okay, well, I'll try to make it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, man, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you very much. You could also do this with Skype. People wouldn't have.
I know, that's something that I would welcome that as well.
we also allow Skype as well.
For office, we talked about for formal meetings.
Oh, okay.
Right now, this meeting involves me as well. So
So who's this?
this is she's
Perfect.
and she's